Who's there?
We are talking The Hollow Child, also known as The Hollow Ones. This one is directed by Jeremy Lutter, a Canadian horror movie, and it stars this kind of this young girl who I think is pretty damn good. I forget the actress's name, and it's essentially about this kind of somewhat rural community, and there's this kind of dark forest that is nearby, and it seems that there have been a rash of disappearances that you know, where children have gone into the forest and then came back a little later, but they've been somehow different. And it follows this one particular family, and we have a kind of a rebellious teenage girl called Sam, who is actually a foster child. She's sort of taken in, and then there's this kind of young girl who I'm not sure if that's the biological daughter of the parents. It's not actually established, or whether she's another foster child. I'm not actually sure. Anyway, and you know, this teenage girl finds this kind of her little sister, so to speak, a little bit annoying, and tells her to go walk home one day on her own, and she kind of disappears for a little while, and then turns up, but is somehow different. And Sam, being the protagonist of the movie, is noticing it the most, and finds out that she may well be this kind of strange creature that has replaced her, and ultimately wants to tear her kind of family apart because they hate humanity. So it's up to her to try and gather up some allies and to expose this creature for what it is and somehow defeat it. So that's your kind of your basic your plot premise here. What do we think of The Hollow Child? The actual premise is quite good, and the thing that struck me about this movie the most is some really fantastic cinematography in these kind of woodland scenes. It almost looks like a kind of surreal fairy tale. I thought it was some really great photography, and these woods look absolutely fantastic. We have all the kind of the mist sort of creeping through. It looks really spooky. You almost feel like you're kind of watching, you know, a modern sort of grim fairy tale, so to speak. So I really enjoyed that, and I've got to say I kind of quite enjoyed the cast, particularly the young girl here who plays this the young child who's kind of replaced by this kind of like this creature. She does a great job of having those sort of those varying performances. This kind of sweet little girl first of all, and then this kind of more malicious kind of like creature later on. So child actor here does an absolutely fantastic job, and it's, to be fair, actually overshadows pretty much everyone in the cast. But no one does a bad job. Everyone does, you know, a good enough performance. But her role is definitely the most kind of showy, and it's good that they've picked an actress is quite good. There are some supporting characters here that I feel are written to be a little bit kind of typical kind of superfluous characters that don't seem to have much in the way of defining character traits. The reveal of the monster itself, I've got to say, is a little bit disappointing, and it does feel like it's more or less kind of just going through your kind of standard horror movie plot. It doesn't really seem to have much in the way of big surprises, and it always, you know, I'm kind of tired of this trope now where we have this little stinger at the end where it's meant to be this surprise, and they think, do you know what, it will be a surprise not to have that for a change. You'll know what I mean when you see it. But I've got to say, I thought this was a fairly good horror movie in the fact that I felt like its performances were probably better than average, and some of the kind of like the camera work and the cinematography really was quite spectacular. The creature itself, I've got to say, is a little bit disappointing, but the actress who plays this little girl does such a good job of kind of really giving you this kind of sense of malice and kind of like of a real threat. You know, it almost feels like it kind of works past it, so to speak, and when you kind of see more of it in its monstrous form, that's when it gets a little bit crappy. But overall, I've got to say, I thought this was a fairly good, if an unspectacular horror movie, but certainly worth a watch if you kind of like your creepy kids or kind of like Creature in the Woods type movie. I'll give it a 6 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.